Support for this program comes from SoCalRen, the Southern California Regional Energy Network. SoCalRen provides incentives and hands-on assistance for energy-saving programs and workforce development that benefits residents across 13 counties. Learn more at socalren.org. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to High Energy Podcast. We're so happy you're here. My name is Esteban Gast. I am your host, and today we are joined by Craig Perkins. Craig is the president of the Energy Coalition. Previously, he was the director of Environmental and Public Works Management for the city of Santa Monica. And today we're talking about everyone's favorite topic, utility bills. Utility bills, why they feel so unaffordable, what are things we can do about them, how can we think about utilities, affordability, and understand what's happening in that piece of paper we get every month. So Craig, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
I feel like I built it up being like, now you're going to fully understand utility bills. But I feel like you're the perfect person to ask. You've been in this work for a while, previously in the city of Santa Monica, now in this nonprofit, right? The Energy Coalition. How has the world of climate changed? Like, how have you thought about things like sustainability and like utilities and things like that over the arc of your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. The concept of sustainability actually didn't exist when I started my career with the city of Santa Monica, and so one of the advantages that I had and my staff had was to create the first sustainable city program in the United States. And so that would have been not until the early 1990s. And, we just basically asked the question, so what does that look like in the long term for a municipality? And what are all the elements of that, the resources, including energy, but beyond that, sort of the, community well-being, housing, transportation, all those elements. So I would say since that time, we're much more sophisticated in understanding, and we're also now focused on greenhouse gas emissions, climate change issues related to sustainability. At the same time, it's become much more complicated and much more contentious, as we can see in the national political landscape, in terms of, are we willing to make those investments to ensure a better future for our children and our children's children, and that's pretty much where we're at as a nation. California, fortunately, has stayed true to most of those commitments and that vision for a more sustainable future.
Yeah. So in the early 90s, you were part of the team that's like, let's really have this Office of Sustainability. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Created that office.
That's amazing. Was there like a certain spark that led to that? Like, I'm curious where you were like, you know what? Let's create this office.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to take all the credit, but
yeah, the whole team, of course.
We were fortunate at that point in time. We had a progressive city council, and a few of the city council members were really committed and wanted to be a leader, wanted to demonstrate a different path, for municipal programs and those, resources, our resource management. So it was a combination of that and me being able to have some real change agents on staff that were supported internally and by the community. We created a citizens task force on the environment, like really sort of high-powered, committed people that really wanted to help us put this program together. So it was a confluence of factors, which it's kind of a moment in time.
Yeah.
And they come together and you can achieve some pretty incredible things.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Citizen task force, also a great idea. I feel like we need that for everything. We just need citizen task forces everywhere.
Yeah, citizens task forces that are not just window dressing, that are actually involved in helping create policy.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, this is a slightly hard pivot, but I think it's what everyone's feeling. Can you help us understand why energy bills are rising so dramatically? If we just think about right now, everyone's talking about affordability, right? Politicians, like everyone's feeling it. What has happened that makes energy so expensive now?
I think it's first important to try to sort of reduce it to a non-emotional level in terms of energy bills, because
you're like, Esteban, settle down with the emotion. I'm crying. I'm like, what's happening?
Well, not just that, but depending on who you ask, that question, they're going to have a different concept of what their energy bill is. And let me give you a good example. I deal with energy bills in terms of my job related to primarily electricity and gas use. They call it natural gas. I'm going to call it fossil gas because that's what it is. It's maybe natural, but arsenic is natural. Doesn't mean it's a good thing, right? So fossil gas, electricity. But a person running a household, the head of a household, they're probably loading into their energy costs, gasoline costs, for instance, right? Which is possibly more than their electricity or natural gas. And so an energy bill, when I talk about energy bills, I'm going to be talking about electricity and natural gas primarily. And so to answer your question, the reason that those costs have increased is it's a lot of reasons. One of the main reasons is that the actual cost of the system that delivers that energy has increased dramatically. We're talking about poles, wires, pipes, because just the infrastructure cost, a lot of it's old, needs to be replaced, needs to be upgraded, needs to be expanded. That's a key driver. Also, there's a lot of costs now in California that are associated with wildfires, which we have experienced, very destructive wildfires. And that makes up now a serious part of what people's costs are.
And those costs from wildfires are reflected in the bill in what way?
It's a combination of actual damages, liability, which has to be absorbed by the utilities and then by the ratepayers. It's also what we broadly refer to as mitigation costs. And those could include everything from clearing trees and brush so that fires don't stop around, poles and wires, to actually what's referred to as hardening the system, putting in fire-resistant poles and wires. In many cases now, they're talking about undergrounding, that's those electric wires to make them more resistant to, fire damage. There was a report released about a month ago, which said that those wildfire costs, if you put that all together, represent as much as 20% of a person's electricity bill right now.
Wow.
So that's pretty significant. And it's something that's only going to increase. Let me remind everybody that doesn't include any costs related to the Eaton fire, which was in Southern California, Edison territory, or even the Palisades fire, which was in LADWP territory. But the Eaton fire clearly was caused by a utility line, an Edison line. And so, but we don't know how much that total cost is going to be at this point, but that will be something that's factored in. So that's a big issue in Sacramento. It's a big concern in terms of controlling those rates. But to get back to sort of finishing the answer to your question, one of the other reasons that rates have gone up is because we've done such a good job being energy efficient, using less electricity and less natural gas, but the costs of the system to deliver it keep increasing. You've got to be able to pay for those increasing costs to maintain that system, even though the demand has been pretty flat for many, many years in California. But rates don't equal your bill. This is a really important concept. California has the highest electricity rates in the nation, other than Hawaii. That's a common statistic thrown out, and it's true. But that doesn't mean that Californians pay higher average bills than everybody else in the United States, because California demand for electricity has stayed flat almost since the 1970s, whereas in the rest of the United States, on average, it's gone up 50%. So if you look at so the monthly energy costs for our average household in California compared to the rest of the country, we're pretty much in the median, even though the rates may be the highest.
Yeah. Why has the energy, why in California has that plateaued since the 70s? Is that just a cleaner grid?
That's because we did the right thing. In the 1970s, that was the beginning of a focus in California on conservation and efficiency. And we started first, and we've done best in terms of reducing waste, increasing the efficiency of our appliances, of the equipment in buildings that use either gas or electricity. And that's how we've beat the nation in terms of keeping that overall demand low compared to them.
I love that. Every Californian's like first and best. That's right.
First and best.
First and best. Okay, you mentioned the difference between a rate and the bill. Can you walk us through? Because the thing that's such a helpful, like, here's two different contexts, right? Here's two different structures. To me, you're right. I think, the bill, and there's a lot of the utility bill that I get that I just don't understand. Can you walk us through what shows up on that utility bill, and how can we better understand our energy use and like what that means?
Yeah, and because I could have done this 20 years ago out of my head, but I did bring a couple of notes, which I'm going to encrypt you in years, okay? But first off, because I look at my utility bill and try to figure it out, and it's not easy.
And you're the utility guy.
Yeah, I should know how to do this easily. And so the first thing I want to say is that when you look at your electricity bill, particularly, let's just talk about the electricity bill for now.
Perfect.
Because that's most of the focus is on that. You're not going to get all the information you really need to understand about looking at that bill. I'm just going to put it out there, because it's not built. That bill is not built for full and transparent disclosure of everything you're paying for, in terms of your electricity costs. There's things which are not on that bill that should be, and there's other things on that bill which are extremely confusing and sort of to understand. But I think it's best to just think about, okay, so if I have $1 electricity bill, what's going, what are the slices of that dollar? The biggest part of that dollar, 38 cents of that dollar, is for what's called distribution system costs. What's a distribution system? That's the poles and wires that are local, mostly local, and the substations, the transformers, and all of that actually gets that electricity to your meter, to your home, to your apartment, to your business. 38 cents of that. So that's the biggest part.
And that's, just to even pause there, what you're saying earlier is that infrastructure, like hard cost, is going up, right? Like, so those poles or wires, some of them are older, they're getting a bit more expensive.
Yes.
To maintain, to even use.
Yes.
Great. Okay, awesome. So we're connecting those 38 cents to what the earlier. Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Because we got a lot of old stuff out there. When I was in Santa Monica, we had the wires in our downtown area, the underground wires, the Edison wires. They were 70 years old.
Oh my gosh!
And they were so old they couldn't even splice in new cable. They had to eventually replace the entire
70
thing.
years old is. That's like a different electricity.
Yeah,
that's like
electrons haven't changed, but yeah, the cables and wires have changed over time.
Thomas Edison's over there,
right,
working on a light bulb with the 70 years. That's amazing. Okay.
So the next biggest part of your dollar, 28 cents of that dollar, is for generation, and that's the actual production of the electricity that's in the power plants, and that could be increasingly in California. That's wind turbines and solar arrays. But there's also still a big chunk of that is generators fueled by fossil gas. Actually, we've done a pretty good job there. Solar electricity, grid scale solar electricity, is the cheapest option now.
That's great.
That's the success story. Right?
Yeah.
Now, this next piece, the next largest piece, 16 cents of your dollar, is for the transmission system. Now, what's the transmission system? Think of the transmission system as the electricity superhighway. That's your superhighway. That's getting that electricity long distances at very high voltage around California and from outside California to inside California. That transmission system is managed by the state agency called CAISO. And it's owned by various entities, the utilities, the state, and others. But that's important because that's getting that high voltage electricity long distances, right? And that also has been, I mean, you can imagine it's more expensive to build it. And now the big debate is how much additional capacity does that transmission system need? Because, you got electric vehicles, you got data centers, you got all these increasing demand, components that we're going to have to build for. And so that 16 cents has also increased over time and is projected to increase, right? This next one I love. So the next highest part of your bill, which isn't included on your bill, is utility profits, 10 cents. 10 cents of that dollar, utility profits. You won't find that on your bill when you look at it. The more utility builds, the more capital projects a utility build, the more profit they make. That's what they make their profit on. They don't make profit on the generation. They just sort of buy it and deliver it at cost. And they don't make profit on any of the other stuff they do. It's just on capital, not on operations, just on capital investment in distribution and transmission system stuff. Okay, so now the rest of the stuff, this is where it's fascinating. So the rest of your dollar, 3.5 cents for low-income subsidies. And that's been a part of what we've done for a long time.
Yeah.
2 cents for the infamous other category. So I won't get into it. There's a lot of other stuff there. Let's get rid of that other. But there's 2 cents for the other stuff. 1.5 cents of that dollar for energy efficiency programs, and 1 cent of that dollar for what are called demand response programs. Those are programs that reduce the peak demand that we have, because certain times of the day where we have a lot of electricity coming into the system, certain times where it's much more expensive to find that electricity. This is primarily when the sun goes down, right? And so those are important programs, but that's 1 cent. So there you go. That's not what you're going to find on your bill, but that's what each dollar is paying for. And it's really good to keep in the context of the further part of our discussion about, why is everybody trying to get rid of those energy efficiency programs?
That's so helpful. By the way, thank you for breaking down where that dollar goes. That I feel like that is so helpful and gives so much context. Yeah. Okay. You talked about energy efficiency and how little of it goes to that. To me, right, I'm sitting here being like, that's a brilliant ROI, right? Like, if we're talking about the whole bill being lower and better for everyday folks, energy efficiency programs would benefit, right? It feels like you spend, 1 cent, you get $1 savings. You spend 2 cents, you get $3 savings. Like that, it feels to me like that's a thing we should be doing. Can you talk a bit about that? Like, and what do we mean by energy efficiency? What is that money going to? Mm-hmm. And how should we think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's the best investment we've ever made in terms of our energy costs, but it's the least appreciated investment we've ever made. It's pretty simple. I mean, what's the easiest thing you can do? The cheapest kilowatt hour ever is a kilowatt hour you don't use. So the first priority is, don't waste energy. It's what a concept, if you're going to be out of your house all day, do you need to leave the air conditioner at, 70 degrees, or if in the winter you need to leave the heater? So don't cool in warm spaces that nobody's in. Don't leave lights on in spaces that nobody is using. So waste less. That's the first priority. Now, after that, then it's what energy efficiency involves is how can we retrofit or change your appliances, change your equipment, upgrade them, or improve them to a less energy intensive option model, and that costs more money. I mean, the waste less is free.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
it just is turning off the light.
Man, I mean, I'm going to save money with a zero investment action. The equipment efficiency, appliance efficiency, you're going to have to make an upfront investment to do that. Also, in that category is increase the efficiency of the space you're in. That could be insulating the attic, sealing doors and windows, right, that are leaky, and sort of looking at sort of how your space, whether it's a, sort of a house or an office building, how it's going to need less energy to cool and heat, right?
Yeah.
And so those energy efficiency programs are where the investment, the ratepayer investment occurs for the most part, but where a very high return on investment occurs. The data, this is CPUC data, on average, every dollar of energy efficiency program investment returns $8
Wow.
to ratepayers.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to spend more, not less, on energy efficiency?
So this comes from, let's say, even connecting it to the bill, right? So when you say, like, does that money go towards, how does that money go towards these programs? Can you like connect that for us?
We deal mostly with customers that are in the investor-owned utility territories that are regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission. But the same concept with your an LEDWP territory. Each of those utilities will establish a set of programs which are available depending on whether you're if you're a single-family residential occupant homeowner or an apartment, sort of dweller or apartment owner, or a business, occupant or owner. Each category has a program that should be available for them to participate in. So it's all about a customer deciding, taking that first step that they want to find out what's available to them and participate in those efficiency programs and see what's available to them, whether it's to get a new refrigerator or change out their heating air conditioning system or put in insulation. And then those funds would be available to essentially either pay an incentive to them, give them a rebate that'll offset part of their cost.
Yeah.
Or some programs is like they provide a contractor will come in and do the work free of charge. And so they're kind of all over the board in terms of what's available, and it depends on what category you're in as a customer and what it is that it makes sense for your particular circumstance. And those programs are available for voluntary participation. That's the key. And so for the most part, most customers don't participate in those programs, but the customers that do get a tremendous benefit for themselves, but also it benefits the grid, the system.
Yeah.
Because it reduces the need for additional distribution and transmission system upgrades. It reduces the need for generating those kilowatt hours. So there are significant benefits to the system as well as to the customers to participate.
Do you think they don't participate just because they don't know?
A lot of it's they don't know, don't have the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, probably, people on average probably spend 5 minutes a year thinking about their utility bill. I mean, I don't know. It's just not.
Now it's a full podcast.
Not the highest
really
priority. Yeah. Compared to, getting your kids to soccer and, figuring out what you're, going to buy at the grocery store or all those other sort of living issues. It's just not easy enough for them to find out about the programs and participate in them. So we spend a lot of time on figuring out how to streamline programs and sort of make it easy for participants to find out and participate.
I'm curious. So much of this feels like it is rooted or like the thing that drives it forward is politics and legislation. What is happening now at the sort of like state or local political level that supports some of the things that you're talking about, or that maybe people listening can like get behind or be like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about these things through this political lens. Maybe if we get the right people in charge or the right legislation passed, that would also help accelerate both like, the clean energy transition and accelerate affordability in our bills and the rates. How are you thinking about that in terms of what's happening politically, legislation wise? Where are we at?
That is the question of the day. Let's sort of like put it all on the table. Energy costs have risen dramatically over the last 10 years. Let's say 10 years. They're actually rising on average about 6% per year. So faster than the rate of inflation.
Wow.
And this is, and obviously that's a concern, and things have gotten more expensive. Just back to energy efficiency program costs have actually decreased over the last 10 years. So as a component of total costs, they're actually going down, not going up. The things that are going up that are driving, we already talked about it, wildfire, distribution, transmission system costs, right? So that has really agitated a lot of customers, constituents of elected officials in Sacramento. They're hearing the complaints, justifiably so. So legislators want to do something specific to help solve their constituents' problem. But energy costs, it's really complicated. In order to make really significant impacts on affordability, long-term costs, reducing long-term costs, it's hard. And it's not something you can do on day one. Sometimes the easy path is the convenient path, but the easy path may not be the right path or the best path. Unfortunately, legislators, they want to do something. They want to do something concrete that they can point to for the voters, for their constituents that really need the help, and sometimes that results in not the best long-term decisions. And so that's part of what's going on. And also, I'll put it out there, the interests of the investor-owned utilities and sort of the energy industry is powerful, and they don't want to lose their shareholder return. And their executives don't want to don't want their pay to be going down because the profits of the shareholders are not going down. So in this affordability crisis right now, last year was a record-making year for utility profits, okay? And why is that not on the agenda in Sacramento?
Yeah. Okay, this is a perfect transition. We're going to go to, these are viewer and listener questions. These are perfect things for you to answer, okay? So this is it. Thank you so much for everyone who wrote in. This is the first question. This is from Maria in Orange County. This is why we started talking about electricity bills and affordability. This is the question. My electricity bill has increased exponentially over the past few years, even though my usage hasn't changed much. Can we expect to see lowered costs anytime soon? I think she's echoing what a lot of people are feeling, because it feels like my usage hasn't changed much. What's happening? Yeah. So I know you answered some of this, but if you were to maybe like in a succinct, hey, Maria, and people who are asking this, here's sort of a lightning round summary of how to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on a lot of the answer to that question, but this is why a lot of customers are really, really upset, because they've done the right thing. Their energy usage has not gone up, yet their costs continue to go up. And so what I would say is that, that's exactly what's happening, because the charge per unit of energy that is used has to go up to pay for all of those expenses, all those investments by your utility on the poles, the wires, the pipes, and all that other stuff, and dealing with all those wildfires that happened, or unfortunately, that need to be paid for, the damages from those wildfires, and trying to prevent them from happening in the future. So those costs have been increasing much greater than the rate of inflation, and that's impacting you, even though you've done the right thing and you're not using anymore. The first thing she should do, though, is maybe re-examining what her options are to use even less, and maybe change some of her appliances, equipment, or other sorts of, options that she may have. But it's unfortunate, but that's absolutely true. That's exactly where people are at.
And then the thought there would be, maybe this is more longer term or medium term, but the thought would be, and if we invest more in energy efficiency programs, the costs would lower, right? So if we go back to that breakdown of the dollar, 1 cent, if that is raised to a few more cents, then that would actually impact lower energy bills, right?
Yeah. And for Maria, direct benefit for her, for her neighbors in her community that maybe are not participating, direct benefits for them, but very, very difficult to find. You're not going to find that on your utility bill. So it's like, it's sort of hard to sell that, because we don't have any transparency really to the customers in terms of, what the costs and benefits are of these various programs and actions that they're paying for. this is why it's really important to, in our programs, we go in and we do a sort of an audit and figure out what would be most advantageous for you in terms of how your household uses energy, what you have in terms of appliances and equipment. So but there's lots of options.
Where can people find out about those programs? Like what's the link? And we'll link to this to all the resources and everything. And SoCal Ren, I know, has a bunch of programs that support this.
Exactly. The Southern California, the SoCal Ren has various programs. And then the Southern California Edison has programs. The SoCal Gas has programs. And then there's also you're talking about heat pumps, there's also some statewide programs where there's rebates available for changing out your heating, air conditioning to heat pumps, or your water heating to heat pumps, depending on sometimes your income category. It could be complicated. And there's a couple of sort of clearinghouse, information clearinghouse places to look for it. Takes a little, but it should be easier, but it can be done.
Yeah. Perfect. And we'll link to all the resources. So hopefully it feels a bit complicated, but we'll have some links, and hopefully people watching and listening can go to those links and be like, great, here's resources to help me think through this. James, Studio City, as someone who has worked on energy programs for several years, that's you. Are there any specific energy program examples that you feel really worked for Santa Monica that could be replicated elsewhere? Any specific programs that you're like, man, every city should do this?
Yeah, we came up with our what we called our energy independence plan. If you own your home, your single family home, absolutely be looking at solar and battery storage as the best long-term option that you have available. And we had a solar Santa Monica program and tried to support that and sort of get fixed prices, for people putting in solar panels. And it's unbelievably economical to do that if you look at the long-term sort of payback. So that's one thing to look at if you want to be energy independent. But before you do that, reduce your usage. I mean, it's like, why do you want to build like solar and battery storage for a lot of demand that's like could be reduced? It can be more efficient. So look at your main sources of energy: water heating and space heating and cooling. Those would be your two big ticket items. And you hit the nail on the head. Look at going all electric in terms of heat pump, water heater, heat pump, cooling and heating. Over time, that's going to be much more efficient. But then also look at your do you have insulation? I mean, are you like heating and cooling your living space so you can just send it out, out to the outside, so looking at all those factors, because, people just don't have sometimes the ability or the time or the expertise to evaluate, what are my best opportunities? And so, I'm positive that he has specific actions that would pay back, but it's hard to know exactly without stepping into his home and looking at it.
This is the last question. The last question for the podcast. This is from Stevie in Toluca Lake. This is also something we've talked about. Also something people, especially in Southern California and Los Angeles, are thinking. I keep hearing about wildfire mitigation efforts, including things like undergrounding wires in mountain communities. Will those projects show up on my bill? And who decides how those projects impact rates? Yeah, it feels like a lot of decisions are being made. Will they show up on the bill? And who decides how that impacts rates and what happens?
First of all, yes, a lot of it is going to show up on your rates, whatever's done. And second, this undergrounding concept is very ill-conceived and is being very poorly executed and could potentially become the biggest boondoggle reducing your affordability of anything out there. It just seems to be a really bad idea that we're going to spend. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars potentially to spend on undergrounding for wildfire protection, right?
Yeah.
Where's the cost benefit analysis of that based on sort of how effective is it going to be really? Because unless you underground everything, which nobody can afford to do, you still potentially are going to have a wildfire where it didn't get undergrounded. So there's a lot of other less expensive ways to help protect from wildfires, which don't involve undergrounding. Can we figure out a smarter way to do this, which actually delivers the most benefit for the least cost? And that's really not happening right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for a thoughtful answer that also questions some of the things that we're seeing, right? Because I think with something as emotional as a wildfire, people go, here's the thing to help it. And you go, of course. And you almost don't take that beat and go, wait, what are other ways to think about that?
Yeah. And it is the most expensive option you have.
Yeah.
As a public works director in Santa Monica, one of the things we did was we had a certain amount of money to underground the above ground poles and wires every year. And we could do like 2 blocks a year.
Man,
it is. I'm just saying, it is absolutely the most expensive approach that you can take.
So interesting. Thank you for those insights, and thank you for everything we've talked about today. I mean, breaking down the energy bill, the utility bill, is so helpful. I love the breakdown of like where the money goes, helping us understand energy efficiency, specifically like how that can be so valuable, how we should think about it, how it really is so much about energy reduction, helping us like think big picture in terms of energy abundance and who benefits from this. That is so helpful, Craig. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I feel like I learned so much, and we hope you learned so much too. And we love all the listener questions. Send them in at highenergypodcast@socalren.org. That's high, like HI energy podcast. And if you like this, please literally like it and subscribe and leave a comment and tell your friends and family. Next time if someone's complaining about energy bills, be like, you know what? I just heard this great podcast, and send this to them. Thank you so much, Craig, for being on the show. That is it. There's so many more episodes. Please keep listening. We've got so many incredible, fascinating conversations left for everyone here at High Energy Podcast. Thank you for watching. My name is Esteban. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Before we go, a big thanks to SoCal Ren, working for the good of Southern California. They're helping communities save energy, lower costs, and create a cleaner future for all of us. Want to learn more? Visit socalren.org.